Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and got some great guests coming up on today's program. First of which is a very special lady that's going to be coming to Southern Oregon this October for a very special women's gathering. Her name is Catherine Martin, and our own Paulina talked to her about her soon visit to Southern Oregon.
Well, I'm honored today to have a special guest, Catherine Martin. She's the president and founder of Quiet Time Ministries and a guest speaker of this year's retreat for women called Revive Your Heart, correct?
Yes, it's
welcome.
Revive Your Heart.
Welcome. Before we go any further, tell us how to register for this event and where can people find more information about it?
Okay, you can go online to my website, Quiet Time Ministries online. It's at quiettime.org. And if you go to my blog, which is under Cass Community, Cass blog, I'll have a big post about it. And it will be a valley-wide women's retreat, Revive Your Heart. And they'll be able to actually download this brochure, and they can fill it out and send it in. And it's just a don't miss event. It's going to be a one-of-a-kind thing where your life will never be the same.
Perfect, perfect. Do you have any idea what you're talking about?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I'll be talking about revival, and it's the kind of revival that is for every one of us, personal, spiritual revival. And whether you're going through a difficult time, you've experienced a loss, you feel burnt out, or you just want to meet with Jesus, that's what this retreat is all about. And I'll be talking about that kind of revival where you will just have time with the Lord, and you'll be challenged to draw near to Him, and you'll experience Him, and you'll be refreshed. And I'll be talking all about revival, how to experience it, what it means, what happens as a result, and just how it really does restore you to the plan and purpose that God has for you.
Now, you've done many events for women and for men, but for women, let's just concentrate on that. What
Sure.
are the issues that women question you about the most? What are the problems that you address with women?
Well, I would say probably the greatest ones are that, women are juggling many responsibilities, wearing many hats, and, they are very, very busy. And I'll tell you honestly, I love serving with women. I think women are so sharp. And if I want to do something, I love to call together a team of women and say, this is what we want to do. And I'll tell you, they immediately jump in and we're ready to go. And so probably some of the greatest issues are busyness, being exhausted, needing some space, needing some time, understanding their identity, who they are in Christ, realizing that there is a plan and a purpose for them. Because, sometimes we can just get lost in the morass. And I think that that's one of the things that we need to understand is that the Lord Jesus has a plan and a purpose for you and for me. And what is that plan and purpose, and how can we live it out every day?
So how do we, if we're lost, we're all busy, and how do we find that quiet time? How do we start? What's the first step for those who want to have that intimate relationship and that something that we're all long for, and we don't know where to start? Where do we start?
And that is probably one of the greatest questions that I receive wherever it is that I travel and wherever I speak. And I'm just going to share that the thing that I always share, and that is you need a time, you need a place, and you need a plan. It's very important to be intentional, because quiet time and that quiet place and that intimacy with the Lord doesn't just happen. It's being intentional. So it's setting aside a time to be alone with the Lord. And the time for you will probably be different than the time for me. It just depends on your schedule, your responsibilities. And for me, I love the morning the best. And I get up early in the morning, I grab my cup of coffee, and then the place. You need a quiet place where you can be alone with the Lord. And I organize all my materials in that place: my Bible, my journal, my quiet time notebook, my devotional reading, my Bible reading plan. And these are things that I'll talk about that weekend and be more in depth, so that by the time a person leaves this retreat, they are going to be so excited, so on fire to be alone with the Lord. And you need a plan to be alone with the Lord. And so that's one of the things that I will share, is a really cool, exciting plan that is easy to apply every day. And so I guarantee that you will not wonder what to do in your quiet time after our time together at this retreat.
I think many of us have had those kind of revivals in our life where we just feel so energized and we walk away from an event or a meeting or person encounter that we've had. But then time goes on and we just lose it. You know,
Yes.
we're just going back into our old routine. Do you have tips, suggestions for women or men on how to go back, and what can we do practically to regain that relationship with Christ?
Yes, and that is the whole idea. That's why I'm talking about personal spiritual revival, because this is something that is for every day. This is something that really, it's the Lord who renews us and revives us day by day by day. And it really is cultivating that personal relationship with the Lord. It's not a one-time thing. It's a day by day thing. And I will say this, it's something that you grow in. It's not something that happens one time and that's it, and wow, it was great, but it's over. No, it's something you grow in. It's a journey. And of course, we do have seasons in life, seasons where life is really tough. But you know, sometimes those can be the sweetest seasons of all, because of that intimate relationship that you're beginning to cultivate with Jesus. And I just recommend always go back to the main thing: the time, the place, and the plan. And if you lose your quiet time, then start over again the very next day, or even right now. I mean, as soon as you hear this interview and you're watching it, wherever a person's watching it, just grab your Bible, get alone with the Lord, and watch Him restore you even then.
Well, you mentioned the Bible, and of course
Yes.
it's important in our everyday life. How is it important for this quiet time? And also, do you have favorite scriptures or passages that people can go back to and read to kind of set them back on track?
Yes, well, I would say the Bible is one of the secret keys to revival. If you read Psalm 119, you'll see that the reason why that psalmist who wrote that psalm was revived, he says, it's because of the Word. Your Word revived me. And the Word of God is living and active. And I think that's why so many people are not experiencing revival, is because they're not in the Word of God. Statistics are out right now that of those who attend church, only 45% ever open their Bibles outside of their time in church. And so what that means is that people are not experiencing revival. And so I always say, a Bible in the hand is worth two in the bookcase. And so grab your Bible, and it is important to have a Bible reading plan. And you asked about favorite scriptures. I love the Psalms. I would recommend to somebody, especially if you're going through a difficult time, to begin in the Psalms. David was a man after God's own heart. He wrote a bunch of those Psalms. And you will just find that as you begin living in the Psalms, all of a sudden your heart is going to experience a comfort and a joy that maybe it hasn't experienced in a long time. And yes, I do have a gazillion favorite verses. I love Ephesians 3:20, now to Him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to the power that is at work in us. I love Acts 3:19, times of refreshing come from the presence of the Lord. And then Psalm 27:4, it's my life verse. One thing I've asked from the Lord, and that I shall seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to meditate in his temple.
Well, apart from the personal transformation that I'm sure you've seen happen to women and men who do that, who go for that quiet time, yes. How has that influenced their relationship with their, the family, the friends? Have you seen those kinds of transformation to where, you have problems and then you find that quiet time for yourself and your whole life changes, your family changes?
Yes, everything changes. You know why? Because you change. It's not so much that your circumstance changes, you change. And when you change, everything does change. Why? Because all of a sudden, the thing that you couldn't forgive, you find welling up within you a forgiveness for somebody else. The person that you couldn't love, that you just could not manufacture even a love for that person, all of a sudden, you find welling up within you the ability to love somebody else, to love the unlovable. And just it goes on and on and on. Not only that, when you're alone with the Lord, he gives you wisdom. And he shows you how to handle a situation that you didn't even have an answer for. And all of a sudden, you'll get an idea that you'll go, where in the world did that idea come from? And you'll realize the Lord gave you that idea. He'll show you things in his word. It's amazing. When you're in the word of God, all of a sudden, a verse will just leap off the page. I mean, not literally, but it seems like it does, because it comes off the page and it strikes your heart, and it just literally gives you a new view of a situation. So all of a sudden, you're able to do things in your relationships that you could never do before.
I feel like you can speak for 20, 30 more minutes, if not longer. Well, which is great, because now people are excited. They want to see you. So once again, where is this retreat? When is it? And how can people find out more about it?
Okay, this retreat is Revive Your Heart. It's personal. It's for you. This is available to women really worldwide. You could fly in to Medford, Oregon, and come to Klamath Falls. It's October 11th to the 13th. In the year 2013, it's going to be in Klamath Falls, Running Y Resort, a beautiful location, a beautiful place. Just imagine the Lord extending an invitation to you and saying, come away with me by yourselves to a quiet place and rest a little while. You can go online to my website, quiettime.org, go to my blog, Kat's blog, and there's an article about it, and you'll be able to download it there. And I'm sure that there will be links at the station for this interview as well. But this is really a don't miss, once in a lifetime event. And I'm just saying, set aside everything. Come. We're expecting hundreds of women from everywhere to come and be revived.
Thank you, Catherine. Your energy is contagious. Thank you. I look forward to meeting you in person.
Me too, Paulina. God bless you, and God bless everyone.
All right, ladies, mark that down, coming up in October. Well, coming up next, another incredible story. I mean, one that will really touch your heart, as Paulina talks to Rebecca Bender, coming up next year on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Well, we've heard a lot about the topic of human trafficking, and it's a subject that we just kind of wish would go away. Well, it doesn't. And Paulina's next guest, Rebecca Bender, brings this story right to our own backyard. So let's join Paulina and Rebecca in their discussion.
Well, we have a very special guest today, Rebecca Bender. She is the survivor of human trafficking and also an author of a new book called Roadmap to Redemption. So we will talk about the book, but first let me welcome Rebecca to the studio. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us your story. Let's start with that.
Well, I was born and raised here in Southern Oregon. I moved to Eugene as a young 18-year-old girl, and it was near the U of O campus that I met my trafficker. And for about 6 months, he pretended to be my boyfriend and dated me. Got to know my hopes and fears and dreams. When he invited me to move in with him, I was really flattered, and I thought finally I had met the man of my dreams. Mm-hmm. But as soon as he moved me away from my family and friends and secluded me, the trafficking began immediately.
What do you mean by trafficking?
He slapped me across the face and took me to an escort service and forced me to sell myself.
And that was in Oregon?
In Las Vegas was where he ended up moving me to.
Okay, so you went to Has he ever met your family?
Yeah, he met my family in the beginning. Mm-hmm. They really liked him. They thought, oh, what a great boyfriend.
And so you went to Las Vegas to just work or to live with him?
To live with him. He said that he was a record producer, which seemed believable that he went to Las Vegas so frequently since it was an entertainment capital.
Yeah.
And he was very well off, so I guess I just assumed that I was just going to be able to live with him and help with his business. And
so there was no sign, at least for an 18-year-old, you didn't see anything suspicious in his behavior before you got there?
Looking back, obviously, now that I'm older and I've done a lot of work on the issue of fighting human trafficking, I've created a red flag brochure list, and so it's kind of called, Are You Dating a Pimp? And it gives girls some telltale signs on how to identify if they're in a relationship with someone that might not really be their boyfriend.
So when you got to Las Vegas, he took you to a house, I suppose, right? Full of girls. So what does it look like?
No.
What happens?
Yeah, everyone asks that, and kind of like we talked about earlier, human trafficking in America is much different than it looks like in a third world country. You don't have girls handcuffed to beds, stuffed in cargo ships. We are a developed, civilized country, and so we need to really equip our culture on what human trafficking looks like in a developed country like America. If we're all looking for what human trafficking looks like in Thailand, we're never going to find it because we're not in Thailand. We're in America. And so when he trafficked me, to the outside appearance, it probably looked like I was with in a domestic violence situation, and I had chose a life of prostitution. That's probably from the outside how it looked. But there are some really key distinctive factors that if we are able to get people trained on how to identify human trafficking, then there might have been some intervention steps there that maybe a police, law enforcement, or lawyer, detective could have saw and made a difference.
Did you love him?
I did. I mean, I thought he was my boyfriend, so of course I loved him. I wouldn't have moved in with him if I didn't.
Was that the reason you stayed? Because how many years were you in trafficking? How many years were you in Vegas?
In and out of trafficking for nearly 6 years. And in that time, I had been through 3 different traffickers, traded, sold up. I had been branded twice, and I've been to jail 7 times.
And so you've been through several traffickers. So at some point, maybe right away, you realize, okay, you're not here for your boyfriend, you're here to do what they want you to do.
Correct.
Was there any way to escape it at any point at all?
Well, everyone asks that. Why didn't you just run? That's the biggest question. And I always answer that with a couple things. One is, I did run. I wouldn't be sitting here, right? There are many girls that are still stuck in human trafficking. So the fact that I am here says that I did eventually run. But I did try to escape several times. And there's so many layers of manipulation and coercion and brainwashing tactics that are actually proven in human trafficking situations. Sometimes you don't feel like there's a choice. Sometimes your family's being held against you. I had a daughter, and they would say, if you don't come home with tonight, then you'll find your daughter out on the corner. So that was a real factor to come home. They would say, well, you can leave, it's your choice, but you leave with what you come with. And I bought those clothes, and I bought that car. So take your clothes off, give me your car keys and your cell phone, then you can leave. There's the door. It doesn't really seem like a choice when it's put to you in that perspective. And there were times I tried to come home, but my trafficker followed me here to Medford and found me at Boatneck.
And just took you back?
I just, to see him there was so shocking and startling, and I knew the violence that he was capable of. I mean, I've been hospitalized for dehydration, exhaustion, beaten till I was unrecognizable. So my initial shock was, don't do anything, I'll just come with you, please don't cause a scene. And so I flew back to Vegas with him that day.
So what happened? How did you escape that vicious circle?
Well, finally in 2007, the FBI raided the home that I was in for organized prostitution. And initially they came in with a very criminal-minded approach and put all of us, there was 4 girls in the home, and they put us all in handcuffs and zip ties in the corner and right in front of our children. And that was very humiliating. They definitely didn't take a victim approach, which is part of the training that I really try to do with a lot of our law enforcement and district attorneys, is a victim-centered approach. That will just hopefully build that bridge that makes girls want to talk about what their trafficker did to them, as opposed to becoming very defensive and afraid. It was after the FBI raid that it took us several months for me to finally get out, but when my trafficker was arrested for tax evasion, not human trafficking, because none of us would talk, it allowed me a separation from him that began my transition home.
So before I ask you about transition, he is still out there. Your trafficker has never been jailed.
Correct. He spent a year in prison for tax evasion, but like I said, none of us would talk. We're all too afraid, especially also being treated like a criminal. I was afraid. They didn't come in like we were human trafficking victims. They came in like we were prostitutes, and so I was afraid that I'd lose my daughter if I talked too much. I was worried about what to say or not to say, so we just didn't talk at all. And I don't think I'll ever talk about who he was or his name. It's not worth it to me anymore. I've moved on. So has he. You know, I'm sure there are other victims out there, and I'm really sorry for them, but I'm doing what I can to save the victims that I'm in contact with now.
Where is God in this picture? God
changed everything for me. He really took me like the prodigal son and welcomed me home and set me as a rightful heir. And if it wasn't for Jesus, I wouldn't be here. He set my feet on a rock. He put a new song in my heart and in my mouth. I mean, I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for him. And that's really what the book is about. If we don't give victims Jesus Christ, we're really just switching their cloak of bondage. We're giving them self-importance or fame or money or purpose as their new form of bondage. And while the handcuffs might be pink and fuzzy, they're still in handcuffs.
And the book you're talking about is Roadmap to Redemption. It's newly released. It just came out February, right? And I'm sure it's available everywhere. You can just type it in the name, Rebecca Bender, Roadmap to Redemption. With Christ and the victims, how did your family was Christian, right? So you grew up in a Christian home. At what point in your 6-year struggle in Las Vegas did you actually hear God's voice, or however it happened with you? What made you actually realize that God is there for you?
Well, there's many instances that God set up, and just to recap, while my grandparents were Christian, but my parents never brought me to church. I wasn't really raised in a strong Christian home. I mean, I went to Sunday school with my grandma occasionally, and I remember stories of Noah's Ark, but I never was taught the stories of Rahab or Paul in house arrest, or, I was never taught any of those things. So I felt like God was so foreign that he couldn't identify with me and what I was going through. And so as he started putting roadblocks in my path, I started to think, wow, I wonder what this God thing is about. I had a working girl one night pull me aside in a hotel and say, hey, can I talk to you? And I thought, she's going to try to rob me, or her trafficker's going to be outside in the parking lot to try to rob me. And I said, what? And I remember her saying, I don't know if you know God, but the path that you're on is about to kill you. And I immediately put my hands on my face. I couldn't stop crying. And she put her hand on my shoulder and said, do not be afraid. God loves you, but he wants you to know that you need to change your road, to change the path that you're on. And it was when I finally gave my life to the Lord, and I got involved in a women's rehabilitation home, and we had some required reading. I opened up the Old Testament, and it was the story of Moses hiding his face in his hands as the Spirit of the Lord passed by. And the scripture says, and the Lord replied, do not be afraid. And it instantly hit me, wow, the Spirit of the Lord had used another prostitute that day to get my attention. He can use anybody, and he still does. It wasn't just an Old Testament story. He still does it today. And
there's so much to talk about and I would encourage everyone to look at this book, because when I heard you speak at the Christmas dinner, it's changed my whole perspective, my attitude towards human trafficking. I had no idea. And another thing that was shocking to me was how prevalent it is in Oregon.
Oregon is a huge hub for human trafficking. We're one of the top hubs in the country.
So we don't have much time left. What signs can parents look for?
If your daughter's dating a pimp, some of the signs you can look for is if she's coming home with very expensive things, jewelry, watches, purses, shoes, if she's out of town frequently, if her boyfriend doesn't have a job that you can actually visit, like an office like this that you could come see. Another sign they can look for is if he's really getting to know her hopes and dreams and promising her these grandiose ideas. All of those things combined, anytime he wants to move her away, seclude her in a different city. Another thing we say too is any attempt to fast track a relationship is an attempt to control. So many of those things put together should definitely raise some red flags.
Apart from the book that you just published, you also help in different organizations. You travel around, you speak locally. Redemption Ridge is something you're involved in. Can you just give a brief outline what that is?
Yeah, Redemption Ridge, which is redemptionridge.com, is a local safe house for domestic minor sex trafficking victims. I'm their director of mentoring, and we're currently working at getting the licensing to be able to accept children. It's a very difficult process in the state of Oregon, but we've already been given a facility, and we're just working on getting that prepared for the girls.
So wonderful to see you smile.
Thank you.
I know the story, and I have more details than you were able to share today. And just to know that you have a family, a beautiful family, 3 beautiful kids, a husband that loves you. And it's amazing to see what Christ has done in your life, and I really hope that your story can help someone else. As a closing thing, what can you tell people who either dealing with this or maybe clueless about it, some kind of a message that maybe will do something in someone's heart?
Well, something that I love to tell people is that we really need to start looking at identifying what human trafficking looks like in America. It's not what the media portrays in movies. It's really crucial to know that 90% of prostitutes in America are actually under the control of a trafficker, which should create an automatic assumption in our mind that when we see a prostitute, we don't say that child prostitute, that we know this child is a victim and there's an adult behind this situation. We need to trust in the Lord that He wants to help those people, and those are His daughters. And I know that if God can do it for me, He can do it for anybody. That, you know, He's the same today, yesterday, and tomorrow, that there is hope for these girls. They can become amazing mothers and wives and members of our society, that we shouldn't give up hope on them because God hasn't given up hope on them either.
Do you think human trafficking can end eventually?
You know, that's hard to say. I know that we abolished slavery 150 years ago, and I would love to see modern day slavery abolished today. I also know that, you know, thinking that, you know, selling drugs will ever change. Children become a product that traffickers are selling, and I'm not sure if that will ever change. I know it can become less and less, and we can hopefully make a drastic improvement in what's going on in our country.
Well, God willing. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Today we had Rebecca Bender with us. She's an author of a new book, Roadmap to Redemption, a survivor of human trafficking, and just a wonderful, beautiful person.
Well, thank you.
Well, we got a little bit of a theme going here, coming off of Rebecca's testimony. Coming up next, Troy Dunn, and of course he was the star and the producer of the TV show The Locator, and he's going to comment on the 3 young girls that were abducted 10 years ago. He'll be our special guest next here on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market. But at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Well, we've all been stunned by the news yesterday coming out of the 3 young girls that were abducted over a decade ago, 10 years ago in Ohio. And how did that happen in a neighborhood under the watch of families, police, communities, cities? And we are going to talk to Troy Dunn. He was the executive producer and the star of the hit TV show called The Locator for 5 seasons, where on what they call WeTV. And he's been locating and reuniting long-lost family members for about 23 years, and he and his team are credited with more than 40,000 solved cases. Wow. And more than any other known organization in the world. And Troy is the father of 8 children and is the leading expert on child safety from potential abductors, much like what we saw there in Ohio. And we're connecting with him right now, so we'll have him on the phone here just in a few seconds. But we all watched this story develop yesterday. It was an incredible time as these 3 young girls now were abducted, they're saying at least 10 years ago, and by 3 brothers. And apparently there were a lot of signs that nobody picked up. And the 3 brothers, by the way, are in jail. They have been arrested, but they have not been charged with anything yet. They are in the process now of trying to define how the charges are going to take place. So we're getting ready. Let's see if we got them here in a minute. Okay, well, we just found out that okay, Troy can't be with us. We just found that out, so I apologize for that. Unfortunately, apparently a double booking. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll switch our attention to Ireland. How about that?
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Easy. All right. Hey, well, we're switching gears here. Delighted to have back in the studio with us a longtime friend. Hadn't seen him for, what, 5 years?
Oh, yep. It's been a while.
It's been that long? David Howell's with us from the Rogue Valley, who is now living in Ireland and doing missionary work over there. And you kind of scratch your head, no, wait a minute, do we need to, do we need to save the Irish? But what's really interesting, because much of our traditions come from Ireland.
Yeah. Very much so.
But what happened? How did you get the call to leave the Rogue Valley to go to Ireland? I mean, of all places, why there?
This was one of those, we often joke that pancakes changed our lives. We were visiting a church up in Northern Oregon, and the church was offering free pancakes before church. And so we went there, and there's a young lady who was sharing about Ireland, about the work that was taking place, and it was through that just God broke our heart for the people of Ireland. And so because we were there for the pancakes, God changed our heart. Came back, I was pastoring at Talent Friends Church, and we came back, talked to the elders, and we ended up resigning about 3 months later and started this process of getting over to Ireland. And now we've been there for 5 years.
Wow. So. Wow. Now, I would have to imagine ministering in Ireland is kind of tricky.
It is.
We still have the Protestant Catholic faction going on. Mm-hmm. There's incredible, rich Christian history there, mm-hmm. And yet there's a need.
Very much so.
Explain,
much so.
What is the need? How would you explain the need?
Well, one of the problems that we have faced, we've talked to a lot of our Irish friends about American missionaries coming over, and that's a wonderful phrase. American missionary. Yeah. But a lot of the Americans that come over have the idea to win the Irish. Well, if there's a winner, there's also a loser. Oh. And so in this process, there's been a loss of Irish culture, of Irish heritage, Irish history, by trying to come over and do it in an American way, doing it in the way that we would equate what a missionary would do. We really fail at that. Really, we try to Americanize everything. We're learning.
Yeah, but I mean, when we go somewhere, I say we, Americans, we try to Americanize everything.
What we have found is we have some amazing friends, and we've been able to partner with them, just walk alongside and learn what it means. And my wife, we attend a Church of Ireland church when we're not out and about. And a friend of ours, George, came up to her on Sunday, and I was asking, because I've been here now for almost a month and a half, and my family's still in Ireland. Oh. And he was asking how things are going, and Tricia said, well, he's getting a chance to share a little bit. He said, you guys did it right. We did it right. What do you mean? He said, you were patient, you came alongside us, you got to know us, and you let us get to know you. Now we'll invite you in to be a part of our lives. But you guys did it right.
Now, you didn't expect that, right?
No.
What were you expecting to do?
Well, we expected to go over and plant a church, as all American missionaries do. You go in, you start up this, and you have your building, and you're... But what we have found is the power is in relationship. And these are our friends. These are not projects to us. These are not notches on our spiritual gun belt. These are friends to us. And some of them we have a lot in common with. Others we don't have a lot in common with. But we just walk alongside them in their faith journey, whatever that process may be. And so for us, that's ministry in Ireland.
Does Ireland, of course, incredible history there, but is it suffering from the same pressures we suffer from here in America? I mean, how's their economy? Are the people looking for truth? Are they looking for people they can trust? I mean, is all the issues pretty much the same? Everything you've said is right there. We've had people who ring us with job loss, just need a friend to talk to, separation, loss of family members, struggles, spiritual struggles, all of those same issues that we face here, they face there. What we have been able to is to walk alongside our friends in these process and not try to shove in with all of the answers, but just to listen to them. And then everything we do points back to our faith, to our gospel of God. I think that was the key verse we use there in 1 Thessalonians, that you have become so dear to us, we're delighted with you to not only share the gospel of God, but our very lives as well. And I think too often we stop at the gospel. We're great with the 4 spiritual laws, which I don't mean to take anything away. That those are very valuable tools and very valuable. But I think sometimes, even here in America, we stop with the gospel and we forget to share our lives with people as well. And that is where it really is a beautiful process when we walk alongside them in that. Is there a difference between an Irish Christian and an American Christian?
Is there a difference from an Oregonian Christian from a California Christian?
Okay, there we go.
Absolutely. But once you take time to listen, I think that's the big key, is we want to listen to people and hear their story, hear their journey, and then walk alongside them in that. For me, the challenge is, I was at a conference before I left to go to Ireland, and the pastor asked us just a specific question. How many of your neighbors do you know? And he was talking to us Americans. How many neighbors do you know? Okay, most of us got to about 2 or 3. And he said he was heartbroken when he drove to church one Sunday morning and he saw so many people out in their yards that didn't have a faith community to go to. And he said it really struck him that his goal then was to get to know all of those neighbors and to get to know them for who they were, where they're at in their life process, to get to know them and how to really love people the way Jesus says. When he said love your neighbor, he really did mean it. And I think we sometimes forget that. And it's a challenge for us, even here in the Rogue Valley. Do we love our neighbor? Do we get to know them and really invest in them? Not with an agenda, not with if I do X, Y, and Z, then you're going to do this. But do you really love those people that are surrounding you? And yet that country, Ireland's been torn with religious wars. I mean, it's been pretty prevalent right up until just, in the last 10 years or so. It's kind of calmed down a little bit. Is there factions of that? Is it still kind of brewed there? Or? There's always factions of that. There are issues that come up. One of the things that really is paramount is a mistrust, especially for outsiders coming in. They've been conquered and had many invading armies come in. Right. And so it's a very, very slow process for people to trust one another. So were you considered an outsider? Oh, I still am. And I have some amazing friends, and really, and so you're the token American. Well, in many ways, yes, but Ireland has a great reputation with Ireland. We have a rich heritage going back and forth, but those are usually visitors. And it's when they are staying there long term that people really want to know, why are you here? What do you bring to the table? Are you here for you, or are you here for us? And they have learned over the last few years that we're there for them. doing different things in the community, being a part of different ministries, volunteering with different programs. One of the things we help out regularly with is the Teen Challenge Drug Rehabilitation Center that's not far from our home. And so I've been going up there since it opened in '08 and mentoring some of those and teaching and just sharing with those people's lives.
You know, some have said that Ireland is prime for revival.
Absolutely.
And I'm not, how would you describe that? What do they mean by that? I mean, I know that, I mean, the guy that writes our devotional, Bob Gass, is from...
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And you hear his stories back when he was growing up, and you thought, wow, I mean, there is an incredibly, very rich spiritual heritage and history there, much of which is born out of pain.
Yeah.
And just complete dependency upon the Lord as to whether or not they were going to eat the next day. And so, you know, God has blessed that country. But now, recently, I'm hearing saying, you know, that place is prime for revival. What does that mean to you? What does that look like?
We have a very passionate people. The Ireland are passionate about sports, about politics, about music, whatever it is. They are just a phenomenally passionate people, and they were known as a land of saints and scholars. That was the heritage. And what we're finding is there is a hunger for people to know truth. There is a hunger because there's been a semblance of religion in Ireland in one form or another.
Right.
And a lot of times we equate it to, we're not building a house from the ground up like you would in Africa or in India or in some of the other countries where you really start with a bedrock of Christianity and build up the framework.
Right.
But what we're finding is Ireland is we're having to do a remodel and go through and kind of take out pieces that are maybe they're a little rotten, maybe a little termite infestation, and firm up that foundation. But once that's there, the Irish are passionate. And just as they're passionate about sports and everything else, when they become passionate about Jesus Christ, watch out. I mean, they have a history of going into the world and proclaiming the gospel. And that's really what we want to see again, is that land of saints and scholars impacting the world again with the gospel of Jesus Christ.
The trust thing, is that because of the condition of the world? Is it a government issue, or is it because this has also been a very religious, torn country?
I think there's many factors, all of those, but a lot of it has to do with people coming in and trying to change Ireland, people coming in and trying to do things a little differently, whether it be the Vikings of old, whether it be, you know, the British today still in the north, and there's still some of that animosity, and so there's anybody who's coming outside of Ireland, they want to get to know, and so there's political, there's religious, there's all of those factors. But when they get to know you, we have several friends who are of different political slants, but once they get to know us, they realize that, okay, we're okay. Well,
I've been in a room where the Brits, the Scots, the Welsh, and the Irish were dwelling, and I can tell you it's a constant poke at one another. Now, sometimes it's tongue-in-cheek, but other times it comes with a lot of stuff behind it.
Yeah, but they are they love lively discussion, and a lot of times through jokes is a way you can discuss in a very, as you said, a non-threatening but very pointed way.
Is the government allowing you to evangelize?
We are, technically our visa is we're visitors in Ireland, but we are under the lay religious volunteer part of the visa.
Okay.
But we are able to work alongside and to evangelize, but we're not allowed to work over there per se, to take employment, to take finances, but we are allowed to evangelize over there.
Because you know, we got the word for you today in there, the devotional, and we've been working with several broadcast groups there, but the government just hasn't been real easy to work with when it comes to broadcast licenses. You know. Well,
I think they just recently, about the last 2 years ago, started up a radio station in Ireland for the first time that's a nationwide Christian broadcast.
Yeah.
And that's only been in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So it is an open government for religion, but in many ways it's very closed in certain aspects of it.
All right, you've been there 5 years. So have you seen some fruit?
Oh, what's interesting for us is when we first got there, there was this stigma attached to us. Those Americans, those missionaries, those people coming in. We could hear our friends were telling us they heard people talking in the street about us. But as the time progressed, and as a lot of cups of coffee with people, and they got to know our heart, about 3.5 years into the process, I had one of my friends who asked me to teach a group. And I said, is there a certain thing you want me to teach on? He said, yeah, can you teach on what it means to have a living faith in Jesus Christ?
Wow.
So 3.5 years later.
Talk about a softball, yeah.
And so I got a chance to share what Jesus means to me. But it took 3.5 years before he felt that way. Our friend George, I mentioned earlier, he said, now, because you took time and your patience, now you're at a place where we'll invite you in and you can be in leadership. But we've started to see that, and our friends are starting to share more with us because they know that it's not an agenda.
You're not in and out.
We're not in and out, and their names aren't going to be plastered all over. You know, George that I mentioned, I asked George if I could share his story. These are not stories for us. These are friends. And so we've started to see people sharing more and more of their heart with us because they know we love them and we care and we're there for them. Well,
and you used a good metaphor. Would you call it the coral?
Yeah. Oh, yes. I was sharing with Perry earlier about the coral growth.
Yeah.
If you look at the new coral reef that are growing, it's a very slow process, maybe centimeters a year. But once it grows, it's beautiful. The colors and everything is just phenomenal. Yeah. And that's really what relationships, and I really do want to challenge, not only for us in Ireland, but for people here in the Rogue Valley, to take a look at how are they fostering, how are they building up relationships with the people that they're interacting with, because there's so much power in friendship, and there's so much power in hope and joy and peace that we bring those who have the gospel of God. But when we share our lives with people, and people are scary sometimes because they're different, their vocabulary, the words they use may be offensive, or the jokes they tell may be crude and crass, but do we partner alongside them and get to know them and share our lives to let them see Jesus living in us? And that's a big challenge for all of us.
So what's the future? What are you hoping that you can do ultimately there?
Ultimately, our goal is to raise up Irish disciples to go forward into their homes, their communities, and to do what we're doing with others, whether it be a formal church planting, because if the Irish start something, it's them, it's their heritage, they'll do it in their way. There's a lot of unreached people in Ireland. And so we would love to disciple people, to train them up, and to partner with them as they start up ministries in whatever that looks like, whether it be church ministries, whether it be coal ministries, providing coal for people who are cold and who don't have the finances for it, providing food, just all of the basics, but really being the hands and feet of Jesus into their communities, into their families, into their neighborhoods.
Well, David, it's just fascinating. How can people partner with you?
Well, we definitely need prayer. We need people to come alongside and pray for the people of Ireland. If you want to send us an email, our email is howellclan@gmail.com, and I'd love to fill you in, give you more information. Okay. I think you'll have that information.
howellclan@gmail.com.
Yeah.
All right, so you're around for a little while, you go back for a little while, you're back for a little while, then you're back permanently.
Yes.
It's the little jump through the hoop thing you got to do.
It's the jump through the hoop, yep.
Well, you're exciting. Thank you so much, and God bless you for what you're doing. And sometime we'll Skype you in.
That'd be brilliant. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Because then you can see my wife and kids, because Trish and Jonathan and Mariah are still in Ireland, so they're very much a part of this.
We could Skype you in someday from Ireland and see what you're doing over there.
Brilliant.
All right, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Perry.
We'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.